I was recently in a position where I was able to pitch to and then negotiate with an investor for a potential multi-million-dollar investment into my feature script, Ghostlight. It was looking pretty good. I was 5 minutes away from getting the funding, and then it ended up not working out. Otherwise, I'd be making that movie right now and you wouldn't be seeing my face. And I'm going to tell you, without getting into too many specifics, what happened, why it didn't work out, and what I took away from the experience. My first major takeaway from this experience has to do with the pitch deck. A lot of people have showed me a lot of pitch decks for a lot of projects over the years. Most indie filmmakers focus on the wrong things and don't focus on the things they should be focusing on. The investor that I talked to did not read my script, didn't even read my one sheet. They looked at my pitch deck and told me very specifically that the thing that got me the meeting with them was the business section of my pitch deck. My plan for what to do with the film after it's made. My plan for getting the investor a return on their investment. They told me very specifically that the film that I was pitching to them was not the genre that they prefer. I was pitching a horror comedy and they prefer sci-fi action. So right away, wasn't their genre. But my business plan was promising, and that's what got their attention. In my pitch deck, I spent about 1 page going over what the film is and my creative vision for it. They didn't even care about that part. I cannot stress this enough. Most investors are not creative types and do not care about your creative vision for your film. They do not care how you're going to use outstanding creative cinematography to tell your story. Don't care. What they care about is how are you going to earn them back their money, their investment, plus a profit. So if you're spending 8 pages of a pitch deck to describe how you're going to set the tone for your film using cinematography, you're wasting your time. My pitch deck featured a comprehensive and viable plan for getting a return on investment. And that's what got their attention. That's what opened the door. And in fact, originally I came to them with a smaller number. About 250,000 is what I was pitching to them. And then I laid out my plan. I laid out what I want to do with the film once it's made. I laid out how I want to market it. I laid out who I want to get to be in the film and how I could get them. And I'm not going to mention any names, so don't ask. And when I laid all of that out to the investor, their response was, if you can deliver on everything that you're saying you can, then you're asking for too little money. You are thinking too small. If you can do all of that, we will put in 3 to 5 million. My plan was strong enough that they were willing to do that despite not liking the horror genre, which I think says a lot for how important it is that you focus on the business side of filmmaking. Because at the end of the day, as much as there's an artist in you that wants to create something that you can be proud of, at the end of the day, filmmaking is a business. The investor that I spoke to, who was ready to put multiple millions of dollars into my script, was very clear about the thing that opened the door to them even talking to me was the business plan section of my pitch deck. Yes, I had a breakdown of what the film was, and I spent 1 page talking about the creative and the cinematography and the vision and all that, but I took about 1 page to do that. Now, during the negotiations with this investor, I pointed to my first feature film, DUNT DUNT DUNNIT, the movie, as proof that I can, in fact, make a movie. My first feature film was made for $10,000. It premiered at Kevin Smith's inaugural Smodcastle Film Festival, got picked up by a distribution company called 3 Keys Media, and is now streaming on multiple AVOD platforms, including Tubi. And by the way, if you go and find it and watch it, that would really help me out a lot, hint, hint. Now, I pointed to my first feature as evidence that I can, in fact, make a movie, and actually make a decent movie, dare I say a good movie, and on a small, basically non-existent budget. When you're making a movie, $10,000 is not a lot of money. And yeah, not everybody who saw my first feature liked it, but usually the things that people don't like are subjective. Like, it's a comedy, and not everybody has the same sense of humor that I have. If you like dad jokes and puns, then you're probably gonna really like this movie. If you don't, you're probably not gonna really like this movie. What the complaints about the film were not, though, were its low budget. because, and I'm not just saying this because I made the film, if you didn't know that it was only $10,000, you wouldn't know. Maybe still in the micro budget range, but certainly more than 10,000 is my whole point. So I pointed the investor to my first feature as a way to say that I can indeed make a, dare I say, good movie and do it for very little money. So imagine what would happen if I was given a lot of money. And that's where I run into my second takeaway from this experience. So I went into production on my first feature not necessarily intending that it itself would sell very well and start my career, but rather intending that it would prove that I can do it, so that when I get to talk to an investor, I can show them that I have done it before and instill confidence in them that I can do it again. Basically using my first feature to sell that I can make a feature. Because a lot of filmmakers want to have made a feature, but not a lot of filmmakers actually do. And this did help to instill some confidence. It kept the conversation going. However, it wasn't as effective as I wanted it to be because, and I was upfront about this with the investor, my first feature was basically self-funded. Myself and a few other people from my team wanted to make a movie, so we all put our money in together into one big pot that equaled $10,000, and that was our budget. So we didn't have investors in the traditional sense. And everyone that did put money into that big pot was a hands-on part of making that movie, which is great for getting the movie made because it got made. And because it was self-funded, I was able to make the movie that I wanted to make without having anyone to answer to. However, what it was not good for was instilling confidence in investors. This is where we get to what is my next takeaway. When the investor asked me what happened to the people who put money into my first film, and all I could really say was, oh, they're still around and I'm working with them still. That's not the answer that they wanted to hear. What they wanted to hear was, oh, they all earned 150% of their investment. They earned their money back plus a profit and are willing to invest in me again. That's what they wanted to hear. And this really brings us into the territory of, if you want to make a movie, before you even start developing your story, you need to figure out what the goal of the movie is. What do you want to do with the movie once it's made? Do you want the movie to sell? Do you want the movie to just exist? Do you want the movie to prove that you can make movies? And what you do to get the movie made is dependent on your answer to that question. I just wanted to prove that I could do it. I wasn't even thinking about how it would look to an investor once it's made. I'm not saying that I would have done it any different, but if I was able to tell this investor that all of my investors earned their money back plus, things might have gone a little differently. That, however, is not the reason why it didn't go through. Everything that I was promising in my business plan and everything else that I was saying was still keeping me in the room. That's just another lesson that I took away from it, is that next time I'm thinking about what I want the film to accomplish, and I might approach funding and prep and everything a little bit differently. For my next feature, I could all too easily put together another 10, 20, or 30,000 and just go shoot something just for the sake of doing it. But that's doing the same thing again and maybe won't advance anything or get me to that next rung. And you gotta think a couple of steps ahead, like a carpenter making stairs. What is it that you want to do? And how can the next project that you want to make get you to that point? Without getting specific about the details, the reason why the deal ended up not working out, as part of my business plan, I pitched some name talent. And I made it clear to the investor that I had not yet done so, but I could, at any point, reach out to that name talent and at least pitch the film to them with a good chance that they would say yes. I had not done so yet because I wanted to have something more concrete to approach them with, i.e., I wanted to have an investor ready with a deal on the table. And I made that clear to the investor. This is a possibility. I have not done so yet, but it is there. And their response was basically, okay, go do. So I did. Basically what they said was, if I can get an LOI from that named talent, then we could proceed. It's basically a letter signed by the named talent saying that they agree to be a part of the film provided they get paid their fee, which is X, and we negotiate to the value of X, whatever. But it's non-binding, it expires after a year, and costs nothing for the talent to sign and do. It's not a commitment, but what it does do is tell the investor that yes, they are in fact interested in being part of the film. So the investor has something concrete to work with, and we can move forward from there. So I set out to get those LOIs. I reached out to the talent directly. I was deferred to their managers. The managers deferred to their lawyers. There was some back and forth in negotiating, which is completely fair. Of course, they would want to negotiate the terms of the LOI. But because I was on the timeline of the manager and then the lawyer and multiple names and all of that, it ended up taking several months to get these LOIs signed. By the time I got back to the investor, they had moved on to another project. Now, I'm not here to say that if I had had the LOIs before talking to the investor that things might have gone differently. I'm also not here to say that if I had approached the talent without an investor in my back pocket, that they would have been as interested to be a part of the project as they were. It's a back and forth balancing game, but it's the name of the game and you got to do it. So the investor moved on to another project, but before they did, they actually said something to me that became my biggest takeaway from the whole thing, to the point of actually dictating what I'm gonna do next. My final takeaway from this experience with this investor is kind of dictating what I'm gonna do next. Here's what they said. Usually the more kind of path that a filmmaker, writer, director, person takes to get their career up and running and go is they start out with making a feature in the sub $50,000 budget range as their first feature. And then their second feature is somewhere between 100 and 250,000. And then on their third feature, they're breaking $500,000. And it's usually not until their fourth feature that they then are able to break the $2 million mark into an actual low budget. Because below $2 million is actually less than low budget. It's micro and then no budget. Filmmaking is expensive. But so the point is, a up and coming director at the beginning of their career, the roadmap is that they start with a basically no budget film, and then each film gets bigger and bigger in budget. And the idea being that each go around, you're earning a profit, a return on an investment, to the point where investors become comfortable giving you more money. So if I can go to another investor and say the last film that I made was made for $250,000 and it made $500,000, now an investor is more comfortable investing $1 million or $5 million into whatever I'm doing next. See, filmmaking, come close to me for a second. Filmmaking is a unique industry, unlike any others, in that it's probably the only business where if you want to get paid to do it, you first have to do it for free. If you want to get a budget to do it, you first have to spend your own money to do it. And only once you've done it and proven to be successful at it, and I don't just mean make a good movie, I mean make a profitable movie, and there is a difference. Once you've proven to be successful at it, only then can you do it again, bigger and more, and have a career. No investor wants to give money to the unproven up-and-comer who hasn't done anything. So, with that in mind, I've decided my next step, instead of reaching for the big swing production that is Ghostlight, which in order to do that the way that I still want to do it, with who I still want to do it with, it's going to need that multi-million dollar budget level, and that doesn't look like it's happening at the moment. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna do another feature that is smaller budget, bigger than what WhoDunit was, but smaller than 4 million. In October of 2024, my team and I competed in the Jakob Owens 2024 horror short film competition. Now, the short film that we made did not place in the competition, but it was very well received and had a lot of great feedback from a lot of people who want to see more of it. That short film is called SPIRITUS SANCTI, and it's about vampires. I'm going to put a link in the place where links generally are, but essentially what I've done is I've developed that short film into a feature. More specifically, a feature that can be produced for about $100,000 to $150,000 that will also help to put me as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a director in a position where I can then earn the confidence of the next investor that I speak to. Now, the reason I bring all of that up is because I've decided what I'm going to do is chronicle the making of this film every step of the way right here on my YouTube channel. Everything from development to meetings with investors to scripting from pre-production to behind the scenes of production to post-production, and then arguably the most important, what happens after production? What do you do with the film once it's made? And how do you get people to see it? And how do you turn a profit? How do you get your investors a return on their investment? I'm going to go through all of that right here on this YouTube channel. And you'll see firsthand whether it's a success or not. And if it is a success, how it became a success. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, then please subscribe to this channel so you can follow along with me on that journey. Because I don't know about you, but I'm excited to see where this goes. And in the meantime, I'm Thomas Tulloch, and this is Filmmakering Like a Boss.